This is Unit 3 Formative 1 Video 2 on one-step inequalities. When we solve these inequalities, we're doing the same things as we did with equations, doing inverse operations. So my first problem here is x minus 4 is greater than 9. Now again, we're solving like an equation, so we can put our line here if we want, and know that to isolate our variable, we're just going to add 4 to both sides. So my 4's are gone, so x is greater than 9 plus 4 is 13. Okay. Now when we graph these, we put it on a number line again. We did graphing earlier. Again, I just like to put 0 here, and then 13. Negative 13 is about the same distance from 0 as 13 is. Again, you could put your graph above the number line. I like to put mine on the number line. So I put an open circle on 13 and I shade to the right. Right. And then finally, interval notation. Remember, interval notation is when we look at our graph or our inequality, see where it starts and then where it ends. And it's like reading a book. You go left to right. So I see it's starting at 13, and it's going all the way to the right, which is why it's shaded to the right. It goes all the way to infinity. Now, when we do our interval, again, if you see an open circle, we use parentheses on the 13, and since it's infinity, we also use parentheses. We don't ever use a bracket for infinity. Second one-step inequality here is negative 4x is greater than or equal to 12. Again, just like we do with an equation, we're just going to do the inverse operation and divide by negative 4. Now we have to be careful here. This is not going to be greater than or equal to. It's actually going to be less than or equal to here. And the reason why it's less than or equal to is when we divide by a negative number, or when we multiply by a negative number, we have to switch the inequality symbol. So just remember that here. Switch the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative number. Let's do our graph. Again, let's just put 0 here, 3's here, negative 3 approximately there. This time, since it's less than or equal to, we do a closed circle. And then we shade to the left this time. And then finally our interval, remember going left to right, it starts at negative infinity and ends at negative 3, parenthesis for the negative infinity part, and again, since it's closed, it's equal to, use a bracket. Our third example here, we have some fractions here. Negative 1/3 is less than or equal to x minus 1/3. And let's just remember, hey, there's 1/3. We're going to add 1/3 to both sides. Add 1/3. Negative 1/3 plus 1/3, well, that's 0. Is less than or equal to x. We did not multiply or divide by a negative, so we don't switch the inequality symbol. If you don't like how it's written here, we could switch or flip it around so it says x is greater than or equal to 0. Let's go ahead and do our graph and our interval notation here. So 0, 1/3, negative 1/3. My apologies here. Let me start over. Make our graph. It's actually at 0. So you could throw in whatever numbers you want. So on 0, it's greater than or equal to. So we have a closed circle, and then we shade to the right. Okay, and finally, let's do our interval. 0 is where it starts on the left, goes all the way to the right to infinity. And then we use a bracket on 0 and parenthesis for infinity. The chess club is sponsoring a car wash. If their goal is to raise at least $120, how many cars must they wash at $7.50 in order to meet their goal? So we're going to make an inequality here. But first of all, we need to know a few things. Now, it says at least here. We have at least. Think about what that means. That means the smallest amount that it can be is 120, but it can be bigger, so that means greater than or equal to. If you see at most, that would mean that the most it could be is a number, but it can be smaller than that, so that would be less than. Sometimes this is what tricks some people about it. You think at least that you think that might mean, okay, it has to be smaller, but in fact that means it has to be bigger. So because it says at least $120, we know it's going to be greater than or equal to 120. Now let's finish writing our inequality. It says that the cars are going to be, that when you wash your car, you're going to pay $750. That's what they're going to charge, okay? So it'd be 7.50, and then let's put C for cars. There's our inequality here. Again, I got that from right here. Let's go ahead and solve this inequality. We're just going to divide by 750 on both sides. Let's use a calculator for this. 120 divided by 750 is 16. So our answer is C is greater than or equal to 16. So that just means at least 16 cars has to be washed. All right, I like to write that out. At least 16 cars will have to be washed. All right, it doesn't say we have to do any graph or do an interval notation on this. So there you have it. This is your video. You guys have a good day.